Hey folks, this is Kalani. We have some huge class changes coming through this week, big nerfs for some of the most powerful classes and specs in the game right now, so they're going to get knocked down a peg or two, and then we also have some very nice buffs for some classes or specs that have been left behind a little bit so far this patch. There are also some updates for the patch 10.1.7 PTR, including some hints towards a potential release date for the next major patch 10.2. There's a lot to talk about, so let's break it all down. Now before we jump in, be sure to hit up that like button and subscribe so you never miss another video. First up, let's go over the class changes coming this week because there are some huge nerfs coming with the next weekly reset. These notes actually say at the very top that unless noted otherwise, all of these changes will be offset so that they do not apply in PvP, which means most classes shouldn't see too many changes for PvP regardless of what these notes actually say, so keep that in mind if you primarily PvP. A lot of these changes are to address these so-called god comps that have been dominating Mythic Plus dungeons especially, so if you're one of these top performing classes right now, your reign may come to a close with the next weekly reset. To start with, Unholy Death Knights are getting a buff, epidemic damage has been increased by 8%, and bursting swords damage is being increased by 12%, so we're starting off with some nice buffs, but it won't last too long, I'm afraid. Moving on to the Druids, only Guardian has some changes this week, and they are going to be some hefty nerfs. Thrash damage will be reduced by 8%, and raise damage will be reduced by 8% as well, so the simple thrash spam is going to be a little less effective for the Guardian Druids moving forward. Augmentation Evokers are on the nerf list once again, and I'm starting to worry that their life as a support spec might not last too much longer. Breath of Eon's accumulation is being knocked down to 10% of allies damage done, down from 15%, and then Fate Mirror's chance to proc is being nerfed again, this time down to 10% from 15%, so both of these nerfs will reduce the amount of damage an Augmentation Evoker contributes to their party. Moving on, we have some more buffs, this time for Marksmanship Hunter. Multi-shot damage is being increased by 8%, explosive shot damage has been increased by 10%, and then trick shots is being bumped up to 70% of damage done, up from 65%, so more AoE and cleave buffs coming through for Marksmanship, but will it be enough to secure Hunters a spot in higher tier Mythic Plus dungeons? I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Mages are on the chopping block once again. I guess the big rework put them in a very good spot, too good to avoid another round of nerfs. So for Fire, Flame Strike, Flame Patch, Conflagration, Meteor, Phoenix Flames, and Living Bomb damage are all going to see 10% nerfs. Definitely not ideal and will reduce their overall AoE damage specifically. Frost Mages aren't escaping the nerf bat either. Comet Storm is being reduced by 6%, Blizzard is getting knocked down by 8%, and Frozen Orb will also see an 8% damage reduction, so both Fire and Frost won't be doing quite as much damage after these nerfs go through. It's not just the DPS in these powerful comps getting nerfed, Holy Paladins are on this week's list as well. To start with, all of their healing has been reduced by 5%, Light's Protection is getting nerfed down to 10%, Overflowing Light will shield for 30%, down from 50% of Glimmer of Light's overhealing, Tear's Deliverance is being reduced down to a 15% bonus, Blessing of Summer is also getting nerfed from 30 to 20%, Fading Light is getting slashed down to just 3%, Righteous Judgment will only have a 30% chance to trigger Consecration, and Consecration's damage is getting reduced by 25%. So a lot of nerfs which will hit Holy Paladins in a lot of different ways. There is some good news here though. Rep Paladins will see an 8% increase to Divine Storm, a 10% buff to Wake of Ashes, and a 12% increase to Consecration. Moving on, Priests have quite a few changes coming as well. Vampiric Embrace is getting nerfed again, down to 40% healing of single target spells, and Sand Lane is also getting nerfed, only reducing the cooldown of Vampiric Embrace by 30 seconds, down from 45 seconds. For Discipline specifically, the Atonement nerf that we saw a few weeks ago is being reverted back up to 40%, so they'll get that extra healing back, and the dev notes say that Disc should actually see some talent redesigns and tuning adjustments in a future patch. For Holy, Rhapsody now stacks every 1 second and causes Holy Nova to deal 20% increased damage per stack up from 10%, which is a huge buff. It stacks twice as fast and you get twice the damage per stack, so that's going to be very interesting to keep an eye on. And then for Shadow specifically, Vampiric Touch damage has been reduced by 20%, Shadow Word Pain is getting nerfed by 15%, Shadowy Apparition will also be reduced by 15%, and then the healing from Vampiric Embrace is no longer reduced in PvP, so I guess that's something at least. Rogues are squeaking in with a couple of buffs as well for Outlaw. All damage has been increased by 5% and auto attack damage is also being increased by 5%. And then to round out this list we have the Warriors. Ravager damage has been getting bumped up by 8%, Thunderous Roar is getting increased by 8%, and for Fury, Improved Whirlwind is getting buffed up to 55% from 50%. So quite a few very impactful nerfs with some buffs sprinkled in there for good measure. Hopefully these class changes shake up the current meta for dungeons especially, and lead to a more balanced playing field in more types of content. Moving on, we have a couple of updates for the patch 10.1.7 PTR that point towards some very interesting events. Wowhead has data mined some calendar entries for another Turbulent Timeways event. If you remember back to patch 10.0.7, which is the last time we saw this event, it's basically just constant time walking. 6 weeks of time walking events back to back, rotating through the different time walking expansions and their associated content. Usually we have to wait quite a while between each time walking event, but for the Turbulent Timeways, it's just one after another for 6 weeks straight. This is important and valuable for a few different reasons. Obviously, we'll get to complete more time-walking dungeons and weekly quests, giving us more access to time-warped badges, as well as almost constant access to time-warped vendors. So if you have a mount or something specific that you've been saving for, or trying to save for, and want to pick up, this event is both your best chance to actually earn enough badges to get what you want, but it's also going to give you a much faster opportunity to actually see these vendors and buy what you want, instead of having to wait months for the right time walking event to come back around, so that's really nice. But what's even better is that we will also have 6 weeks of time-walking weekly event quests to complete. Usually these quests reward you with a piece of normal raid loot, but for the Turbulent Timeways event in patch 10.07, the rewards were increased up to heroic raid loot. So we got 6 weeks of basically free heroic raid loot from the Vault of the Incarnates raid, and if that holds true for patch 10.1.7, we should get 6 weeks of heroic raid loot from the Aberrus raid. I feel like we have way more big ticket items from the raid this time around, so getting access to heroic raid loot just by completing a few time walking dungeons is going to be pretty huge and give you access to one of the best gearing up opportunities for anyone who doesn't already raid or do high level Mythic Plus keys. It will also be great for helping to get your alts caught up with gear, so 10.1.7 is going to be one huge gearing up bonanza, assuming of course that this event does indeed pop up in 10.1.7 and it has the same upgraded rewards that we saw before. We do only have data mining pointing towards this event after all. It's not yet implemented on the PTR calendar, but there might also be a very good reason for that. Patch 10.0.7 was quite a short patch with all things considered. We moved quite rapidly into patch 10.1 and the new season of Dragonflight much quicker than many people were expecting. But what's really curious about the patch timing is that the Turbulent Timeways started on the second week of patch 10.0.7, so track this with me real quick. 10.07 released on March 21st. The Turbulent Timeways event started on March 28th, 1 week later. The event lasted for 6 weeks, so the last week it was active was May 2nd. Anyone have any guesses for when patch 10.1 released? Go on, I'll give you a second. If you said May 2nd, you'd be correct. So what does this tell us? Well, if history really does repeat itself and we get 6 weeks of Turbulent Timeways in 10.1.7, that could point us towards a release date for patch 10.2 and the next big chapter for Dragonflight. We know that patch 10.1.7 has to go live in the first couple of weeks of September or earlier. There are various holiday updates that are part of Brewfest which start up on September 20th, so that's the hard limit on when 10.1.7 could go live. Personally, I think it will arrive in those first 2 weeks, so on September 5th or September 12th, and if the patch cycle from 10.07 follows through to 10.1.7, we should see 10.2 just 6 weeks after the release date of this patch. That means we could see 10.2 start up as early as October 17th or October 24th. That would be right before this year's BlizzCon, which honestly I don't think there's going to be much time to talk about 10.2 at BlizzCon. They will probably focus on 10.3 as well as tease or just straight up announce the next expansion and where we go from here. If the patch cycle continues as expected, we will probably see patch 10.3 in the first half of 2024 with the expansion launching at the end of 2024. There's a lot of content to squeeze into that time frame, so 10.2 releasing before BlizzCon would actually make a lot of sense. Either which way you look at it, we've got a lot of content coming our way, and the Turbulent Timeways event gives us some ballpark dates to work with, but I am very curious what you think. Do you think 10.2 will go live before BlizzCon or after BlizzCon? Do these dates line up and make sense, or do you think 10.2 will release at a completely different time? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Now moving on, we do have some more concrete additions to look forward to in patch 10.17, like the Eastern Kingdoms Cup. We haven't really got to play around with the Kalimdor Cup on live servers yet. That event will start up on August 15th, but it looks to be more or less the same kind of deal, but for the Eastern Kingdom zones instead. So we'll be able to drag and ride in the Eastern Kingdoms with these new races. All of them also come with various difficulty modes if you're wanting a challenge, but this almost confirms that we'll be getting dragon riding races for a lot of old expansion areas. I hope they continue through for Northrend and Mists of Pandaria especially, as there are some really cool areas that I would love to drag and ride through on those continents. All of this just brings us one step closer to free and open dragon riding whenever and wherever we want, which is going to really unlock the full potential of the system in my opinion. And then to wrap up this video, I want to bring your attention to some cool new items in this month's trading post. The Spirit of Competition pet has not been available for a very long time. That was a one-time event reward back in the day, so you might want to snatch that up while it's available on the trading post. The Ethereal Transmogrifier is also quite interesting. It's a toy that lets you summon a transmog NPC. This might seem unnecessary if you already have a yak mount with a transmog vendor there, but this toy can be used anywhere where you cannot mount, like inside a raid or dungeon or just anywhere indoors. So that gives you another option to keep yourself looking fancy no matter where you are. You can also pick up the Crown of Eternal Winter Transmog, which has always been really cool, so if you didn't get that whenever it was available as a prime reward, you can snatch it up now. The Hood of Hungering Darkness is also in the post this week, another great head transmog option. There are also these new Sword and Shield models. There are 2 red or ruby colours and an aquamarine colour as well. These look amazing in my opinion. I'm totally going to try and make some transmog sets around these items, and then there are also a few other bits and bobs in here, but what I highlighted are the most interesting ones in my opinion. So if you want to pick up any of these goodies, make sure you check the trading post sometime this month. It's not just this month that has some interesting goodies on offer though, there are new class sets coming to the trading post over the next few months as well. It looks like we'll get a few sets per month, and each class will also get a variety of weapon models to go along with the set. So the 3 in September we'll see are the Paladins, Priests and Rogues. Here's their armor sets. It does only seem to be helms, shoulders and belts from the looks of things in these sets. For October we will see the Death Knight, Demon Hunter and Druid armor sets. In November, we're going to get the Warlock, Monk and Warrior armor sets. And then in December, we'll finish things off with the Evoker, Hunter, Mage and Shaman sets. So we got 4 months of goodies to look forward to, and each of these sets should come with a set of weapons and offhands as well. So lots of swords, offhands, shields, staffs and general two-handed weapons like maces. Some of them look really cool, and even if they don't necessarily match the sets that are coming alongside them, I'm sure you can mix and match these new armor pieces and weapon models to create some interesting and unique transmog sets. I'll give you a link in the description over to this post specifically so you can go through your class sets, take a good look at them and see if there's anything you want to keep an eye out for. But that's all of the updates we have for this week, so that's it for this video. What do you think of those big nerfs and buffs coming through? Will these classes and specs still dominate the Mythic Plus dungeon system, or do you think these nerfs might just be enough to knock them down a peg or two? And when do you think patch 10.17 and patch 10.2 will go live? Leave all your thoughts in the comment section below. A big thank you to all of our supporters over on Patreon and all of our members who are on YouTube. You can see their names floating by on screen. If you'd like to add your name to the end of every video with a special shout out at the start of the next video. You can find links in the description over to Patreon or click the join button just below this video. And if you want to see more videos like this, make sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you never miss another video. Thanks for watching, folks, good luck and have fun, and as always, I'll see you next time.